Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. It's time to start our lives. It's so wonderful. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 260 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. On this week's show, we are talking about the epic conclusion to BRZRKR with issue number 12. And then we're going to do weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, and we talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. So that is going to be the lineup for our show. We're going to kick it off here with BRZRKR issue number 12. The man known only as B is half mortal and half god, cursed and compelled to violence, even at the sacrifice of his sanity. But after centuries, B may have finally found a refuge, working for the U.S. government to fight the battles too violent and too dangerous for anyone else. In exchange, B will be granted the one thing he desires, the truth about his endless, blood-soaked existence and how to end it. The epic conclusion to the groundbreaking original series is finally here. Caldwell's master plan is revealed, setting up one final showdown with B and Diana. At the end of all things, the immortal warrior finds himself faced with the challenge that even he might not endure. And if he does succeed, what will remain of him when there are no more battles left to fight? This series was done by FrankenReeves, Matt Kindt, Ron Garney, Bill Crabtree, and Clem Robbins. Okay, so for that synopsis, I did pull the initial synopsis for Volume 1 of BRZRKR that is available in trade paperback to kind of set up what this whole series was. We have reached 12 issues, and what we're going to do with this review, we're going to dive into this issue. We're going to go back and forth, talk about likes and dislikes, and just kind of discuss what happened in this issue. Just a general overview. We jump in, kind of pick up the action where we left off, because we had a ending scene with issue number 11 with B realizing that he is now immortal, but there's still a war going on, and we see Diana, who has gained some powers, B, who is now immortal, and then Caldwell, the guy that was kind of leading the project, kind of with his master plan revealed, and he was trying to, get all those powers for himself, and now he has the BRZRKR rage. So we get a lot of fights, a lot of explosions, lots of running away, lots of resets, get our characters jumping to a safe house and kind of collecting themselves, kind of dealing with what has happened. There's a magical pregnancy that occurs within this book. There's more fleeing, more action, more explosions, more gore, more punching through people's faces. Everything that we've been seeing throughout these past 12 issues for BRZRKR is all existent within this, I think, a triple-sized final issue. But yeah, so a lot goes down, so we're going to dive in. We'll go around the horn here, and we can all kind of talk about what we thought of BRZRKR number 12. I will throw it over to Kirby first, if you want to give us a jumping off point. What do you think of issue number 12?
I love the finale of the first round. It's a very interesting twist into things. We kind of expected certain stuff, but yeah, this takes a twist into kind of, in my opinion, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, maybe. That's the best way I can describe it. But yeah, I love the whole love story, the relationship, how everything went. I want to go too deep till everybody went through and stuff. But yeah, this was great, just seeing their powers and abilities and what could happen in the future with them, and the interesting little things we came across. But I'll wait till after other people talk about it before I get deep into it.
Excellent. We'll jump over to Katie. Thoughts on issue number 12?
Sure. So I really liked this. I liked this whole series. This ending was, to me, pretty satisfactory. We do get to see Bee and Diana have an encounter with some kind of dimensional being or deity, and the group controlling Bee is trying to use that for like an infinite energy source to power all their sick experiments and everything. I liked that quite a bit. The final battle was really interesting, and I thought it would end there, but we get a nice denouement with Bee and Diana's life going forward. Yeah, even given that she has these magic children, I still wasn't like, like, oh, like this isn't scientifically accurate. Like nothing in this book has been scientifically accurate. So that was actually really cool and kind of a good way to see like how this is going to continue on. And then they have kids and they do the best to raise the kids, but there's still forces of darkness looking for them. The moment where the soldier walks in and like Bee basically knows that the guy's going to now put him down because he's evidence to like all of these crimes, and like I thought that was really well played. And then when that didn't happen, I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. Overall, I really liked this book. I liked this whole series, like I said. Interesting if they do another round, if we'll see anything about the clones, because there were a bunch of clones, and then the kids grew up quite quickly and we see them like, dating people and making new friends. I think both of those things could be something cool for another story. And then, yeah, as Anthony was showing, the mystery of where Bee is now, if he's somewhere now. Really good. If you haven't read this series, go pick up the trades. It's definitely worth your time. As I said all along, Matt Kint is the perfect person working on this with Keanu Reeves. He does those kind of stories with super powered action characters like really, really well. And I just want to say I really like the cover. I enjoyed the cover on this one, but I liked it. What's everyone else think?
Yeah, I dug it as well. I really appreciated the triple-sized issue, as we talked about
Yeah, that was nice.
in issue 11. They had talked about in the backups, talking about how they're coming to the end of the story and they kind of felt like they needed more space for it, and rather than making it another like a total of 15 issues or something, they were given permission to do this kind of grand finale here of at least this, what's kind of being billed as an initial run. As we've read it, we can definitely anticipate that there would be more to explore, not only with the characters and where they are at the end of this book, but also just this book covers so much time period, which also just leaves it to so many different pockets where you could really just concentrate, like prequel books and stuff too. Like they did such a good job of building a pretty grand world that they just kind of open it up where they can just kind of jump in anywhere. As Katie was mentioning, with the birth of the children and kind of seeing what their journeys could be, finding out about this clone project and the fact that there is and I wish Eric was here, even though I know I think he was sold on checking out the series after we had talked about it. But I wish he was here for this specific episode, because we do meet a character with a name of what, Frankenbee? Is that what they call him?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so basically we see, a version of Bee who is kind of comprised of all these clone parts that were all kind of salvaged and blown up. And so, yeah, we kind of have this, extra Frankenstein type character kind of running about, just kind of out there in the open. And this book, what I really like about it is that it didn't give you all, like, it left it very open ended. I think it gave a very satisfying, like, if this is the last time you visit these characters. I like the idea of letting readers kind of just imagine almost their own ending and their own path, and it could be something that they could revisit in 5 years or even next year, whatever. But I do like that there's still a lot of questions and more to explore, while still giving you a pretty satisfying journey all the way through. So So yeah, that is my overall take on it. We'll jump back over to Kirby if you wanted to jump into any other detail stuff you wanted to mention.
Well, I like how we got the midwife and Unut in the past history, apparently being working with that tribe and stuff like that. At first, when I first seen her, I was thinking maybe the midwife herself had some special powers and has been around him longer, but yeah, that was not the case. Thing I had a question about, I'm kind of curious about. We see characters kind of nibbling on a possible immortal at one point in time, sharing the meat of the flesh. And isn't that stupid? I mean, they sat there and made a Frankenbee out of body parts and stuff like that. So if you're eating immortal flesh, wouldn't that flesh grow inside your body and eventually rip out, turn into some type of being that will rip out of you? That's why I had the whole invasion of the body snatchers type thoughts with this issue. I mean, between that and B and the planet and all that stuff and the spores and just how they're going to be able to kind of reproduce and constantly eventually wipe out the whole planet and their race will take over. But I didn't understand why they were eating the pieces of him. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah, I'm flipping through trying to find that moment. I can't quite pick it up where
Right
it
here.
was. Oh, okay, and okay.
Our character hanging there and they're nibbling away on their nice, fresh, uncooked flesh. It's like,
okay, yeah, with
yummy.
the Caldwell character. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't wanna
Caldwell. Yeah, Caldwell, who had gotten blown up and is kind of almost treated like he's I mean, they're in a church and he's kind of propped up like he's, on the cross in a way, and they're all kind of praying, and it's always like a body of Christ type of thing going on there. But
Yeah.
because they start with the skull and the spine, and then they see him growing from that. So.
Bless us with this eternal flesh, they say, to understand it more perfectly. If you see the stars in a different place and time, blah blah blah. It keeps going on, but yeah, I don't know. They're probably just idiots.
Well, also with that saying that you just said, if you see the stars in a different place and time, when you see Unut on the other planet, there's multiple stars in the planet's verse and in the sky. So I don't know if they're talking about the home planet when they say those things, that they know more about this being than they're letting on. Who knows? They have been studying him for a long time.
I'd be excited to reread this, whether they've got another volume that they're going to plan. I know they wanted to complete this story first before they move on with the announcement of like a Netflix deal and then the anime stuff that they have. It was last summer at San Diego Comic-Con when Keanu was there, and they had a panel for this and kind of talk about those updates, that there's going to be several different iterations of Berserker and other media, but they did want to concentrate on making sure this comic was done before rolling cameras, going through on that. So I'd be excited to by the announcement of more Berserker in what other form, I would be very excited just to read this all in a in one day or something in a row.
And do we know who's behind the eye, behind the little floating ball, who's talking? Because it's obviously not who used to run the stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a overall mystery, because Caldwell has been kind of one of the leading forces throughout this, but then now they've been bringing this floating eye, and they've been that eye has been making the decisions about all right, go ahead and kill B now that he's mortal. And so I think that's kind of just a mystery that's sitting out there yet.
I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something in the past.
No.
Yeah, that's how
I would, if they did another series, I would actually like them to do more exploring the cult that Caldwell was the leader of, partially because I find that stuff kind of spooky and like interesting, but that would be another route I could see them going down, is who's running all this? What's going on here? Is this like a Area 51 thing, or is this a full-blown religion? It would be kind of neat to see.
Yeah, and apparently his cult is connected to multiple other cults. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking with Damon, club member Damon, a couple days ago, talking about the series. He was waiting for this to wrap until he'd get the whole collection and read through it, and then he had asked, what I thought of it and everything. And most of my reviews. What's that?
Slacker.
Yeah, most of my reviews are pretty positive, but I did share how everyone at the club here has been really enjoying it, especially I think if I remember correctly, like Katie, for you, like gore and stuff like that isn't like your go-to, like, all right, I got to get this book,
Yep.
But yeah, here we
Yeah.
are at issue 12 and really enjoying the series as a whole. And so
Mhm.
I transferred some of those reviews over to him to kind of amp them up for it. And yeah. Any other lingering thoughts at all before we end this journey with Berserker?
Don't read this while you're watching John Wick. You would think it would be a nice little conflict of interest, but it's so hard to get any reading done while you watch that movie.
Yeah, it is. It's very great timing of a series. This series has been delayed a couple months, but this last half has come out on a more regular basis. But the timing of it at the time of this recording, John Wick 4 is just came out in theaters. So Keanu Reeves is having a great week, having the finale of Berserker. Just the week prior. Plus, he now gets to watch our review on Crimson Cowl Comic Club because Keanu Reeves, I think, does subscribe to our YouTube page. Keanu, if you are seeing this, feel free to hit that bell and share and all that fun stuff. But yeah, so I think it's a cool timing to kind of have all this crazy Keanu Reeves action happening both in the comics and on the screen with both of these different characters going on. But yeah. All right. Anything else before we close this chapter? Okay, so yeah, if we revisit Berserker, if they do some more issues, it'll be one of those things that we'll throw into weekly reviews. But as far as the club discussion goes, we've kind of covered this chapter and crossing Berserker off the list. It was a pretty entertaining journey. We totally dug it, and here we are at the end of it. So let's move on. We are going to advertise the upcoming club discussions. We will have a new issue of The Punisher with issue number 10 at our next available episode. Then we have the one shot for It's Jeff #1 over at Marvel Comics with Jeff the Landshark. I'm glad I keep him close by for this little promo here. And then we have future issues of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World with issue number 5. So yeah, we are kind of winding down on because Punisher goes up to issue number 12 for our discussion. So we're kind of winding down on some club discussions, but we'll have a brand new previews catalog coming up at least within the next week or two. Then from there is when we decide our future club picks based on what we're all excited about. And if we at least get 3 members or more that are excited about a new book, then we usher it into the club discussion. So stay tuned for more of that. But we do have some more of the shows. We're going to dive into the weekly reviews. And the YouTube audience is seeing that they are getting bonus content that the audio audience will not be getting because I am doing the editing behind the scenes to start new tracks and all that stuff. But look at this amazing bonus content. And all of the iTunes audio uploads are now back in order. So you are getting your videos and your audios at the same time again. But man, you get so much more with these video versions, not only with some fun show and tell, but also behind the scenes how to make a hit podcast such as this. All right. I've done everything I need to do.
Remember to wear clothes.
All right. And then we are going to jump into the weekly reviews. And Jim, once again, as a reminder, I'll start with you because you got 3 books, and then we'll jump over to me and then the normal round. So I will set you up in just a second here. Welcome to the weekly reviews. All right, let's kick it off with Jim first. What you got?
I have a brand new book from Image Comics called Blood Tree. This is a new detective story slash serial killer. It kind of reminds me of Silence of the Lambs, where you see both sides. You see the serial killer and the detectives working to find them. It's got that. It's got interesting art choices in it. And I just want to know what is going on with it in this killer's mind. We don't see enough of it yet to make it. We got to get a couple more issues to understand what's going on with this guy. The main character is a New York City detective, Dario Azzaro. And pretty much every time we see Dario, his face is kind of hard and frequently very much shadowed. Like we see him here in a parade, but he is his face is very shadowed. Throughout the book, whenever we see him, frequently see him like that. But when we see the scenes of the serial killer at work, they all seem to be very bright and open scenes. Like this is a scene of the serial killer at work on his next victim. So it's like all bright colors and everything. And it's contrast to when you see Dario working at night in the shadows and stuff. It's real interesting. So I wonder what is going on with that. Are we seeing a situation where the serial killer is going to be set up as a type of hero? Or is there something that's going to bring Dario down into the level of a villain? That kind of thing. Very interesting. It's got me intrigued to see what's coming in the future. The art style, other than the choice of light and darkness, it's not bad. It's okay. Don't mind it. It's not something that necessarily would trigger me, but the covers so far is incredible. I really like this cover.
Mm-hmm.
You see this person actually has wings. The serial killer is attaching wings, giant wings, to his victims, and then dropping them from great heights into a crowd. They literally have been dropped into crowds, one during a St. Patrick's Day parade and another one during, I believe it was a Yankees game, right onto the field. It's very dramatic. And then the victim or the serial killer records his victims on this giant tree that is drawn on a wall, which is where we get the name Blood Tree. So that is pretty much all that's been covered so far. But like I said, the artistic choices rather than the style of art, I find very intriguing so far. And I want to see what that means in the rest of the story. Oh, I should tell you who's making this comic book. It says from Image Comics, but it's written by Peter J. Tomasi. The art is by Maxime, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but Simic. And color by John Kalish, and letters by Rob Lee.
Cool. All right, I am going to jump over here with a much anticipated Kickstarter release, which is also available in trade paperback, if I'm not mistaken. We have The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. When a wannabe supervillain is charged with capturing the son of Cthulhu, who just happened to move in across the street for the summer, in order to be admitted into the League of Evil, hilarity, hijinks, and horror ensues. Both adults and kids alike will find a lot to enjoy in this original graphic novel, hailed as a great comic for all ages, which is a quote from Sci-Fi and Scary. This graphic novel is done by Dirk Manning, Scoot McMahon, and Sean Burress and Leah Letterman. All right, so this is Cthulhu Jr. Now, this is something that just looks adorable from the cover, as we see here with the art from Scoot. I saw the Kickstarter for this and knew I had to jump in. And this is an extremely fun read, especially when you have the opening of the book saying this book belongs to, and you can fill out your name, and then a little warning that says, "Don't be evil. Come on, don't be evil." And yeah, this is a real cute book setting up the idea that this character of Dirk, who is accompanied by this floating flaming skull character, and he's basically researching when this big like enemy is coming to Earth, and he's looking for reasons, basically reading the guidelines and bylaws of evil. Basically, he is trying to get into this evil league, and he has his suspicions for this entity that's going to be arriving. But what's kind of fun is that you start off the series, this graphic novel, with him in this kind of like lab, dark, dank kind of little headquarters. And he goes up the stairs, and he's in a fairly standard house. And it turns out he's got a wife and child. And it's funny with this lead character of Dirk, who is just still wearing his quote unquote costume, and he does throughout the entire book. And what's funny about it is that there's not a lot of commentary on why he dresses like this, and while his family would be quote unquote normal as far as the way they dress. And it's just kind of funny that this is just kind of a continuing thing, and there's really no comment on that. But he does kind of have a cover up throughout the story, because while he is planning to be part of this evil league, he does have an excuse when he goes out, because he says he's going to go play poker. He's got some poker buddies. And those poker buddies, which I'll show a preview of this is all within the first couple pages, so I won't be revealing too much of the overall story. But here's his quote unquote poker buddies. As we see this pumpkin head looking guy, we see a Dracula type of guy, got a witch, you got a snake there, and maybe like a zombie type of guy going on. So there's a lot of fun little people that are part of his quote unquote poker group. And they're all kind of having their evil meetings. Now, as the premise of the story sets up, they are expecting this entity, and Dirk is kind of thinks he has this all figured out and knows what's going to happen. We see this opening in the sky as we see some very Cthulhu looking tentacles. But this is where we get to our excellent star character, Cthulhu Jr. So Cthulhu Jr. here, once again, still going off the synopsis, has moved in next door for reasons that you can find out if you check this out. And Dirk is now trying to deal with the fact that this quote unquote monster has not only entered Earth, but also the neighborhood. So the whole story is predicated on him trying to get into this evil league, knowing that this threat is right next door, trying to prove that he is worthy enough to join that evil league. And but there is a certain connection that happens with Cthulhu Jr. and within the context of where they are in the neighborhood. And so there might be there's a whole nother like plot B going on that I don't want to talk about. So I'm just kind of jumping over it a little bit. So yeah, that's all kind of set up there. This story is extremely fun. It's cute. It's adorable. Great for all ages. I wouldn't even say that I'm like a diehard like Cthulhu fan or anything like this, but definitely Scoot McMahon, with being the co-creator and the artist on this series, is definitely my way in when I saw that being advertised. So pretty much anything that Scoot does, he is the creator and artist for things such as Agents of Slam, and you got Wrapped Up. His contributions to Oh Yeah Comics. Had recently a story within the Dead Man Tells the Spooky Tales. And so he's got a lot of good stuff out there, and this is just another excellent piece into that Scoot McMahon library. So yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I'll just kind of go over the quick Kickstarter backer rewards that came in. Got this cool little kind of title card here with our main characters, and then Scoot drew a little that flaming skull character in there on the card. And then I will cover this up because I think this is supposed to be a secret recipe. But within the story, they talk about how these Ranger cookies are very important to what's going on with the Evil League and Dirk's, trying to get in good with the Evil League. And they're talking about this great secret recipe for the Ranger cookies. So we do get a card that does give that recipe for the Ranger cookies. So yeah, it's right here. I've got it. Thankfully, it's not on the back, so I can just look at all these ingredients, the directions on how to make them, and look at that. Everything is right here. The secret Ranger cookie recipes. So that was a nice little bonus there. And then also my Kickstarter rewards got these cool little enamel pins of Dirk as well as Cthulhu Jr. So those are some cool little bonus pins. But then the real awesome addition was a plushie of Cthulhu Jr. So there we go. Cthulhu Jr., nice little adorable plushie. This thing's amazing. And yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff that came with that Kickstarter rewards. I honestly don't know if I have a t-shirt coming or not. I saw the email that they're shipping out t-shirts because this was a while ago and I forgot what all showed up. So these things are all kind of like showing up separately. So it's just been kind of a fun week of Cthulhu going on. But yeah, I highly recommend this. I believe this is available as a trade paperback for people that want to dive into it through the normal channels. I'm assuming the hardcover and all the goodies was probably exclusive to getting it kickstarted and stuff like that. But highly recommend this fun all ages, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. Check it out.
I don't know how I missed it. I don't know what happened. But do your cookies consist of real Rangers?
This might just be a Kickstarter backer exclusive secret. And I don't want to be killed off by one of these Evil League of monsters here. So I'm not. You're not going to trick me. I'm not going to tell.
That was a little Addams Family fallback, if you didn't know. I am reviewing Normalman Megaton Man Special. If you recall, last week I did a Savage Dragon Megaton Man book, and I said that I was going to be doing another Savage Dragon one this week. And I just opened up one of my unmarked boxes, the top one of a stack of like 20 of them, and this just happened to be right on top. So I'm like, hey, perfect. We talked about Megaton Man last week with the Savage Dragon. This way I can do two books, two of the characters. But this is from 1994. Image, story, art, and covers by Jim Valentino, Bob Burden, Larry Marder, and Don Simpson. Valentino's Captain Everything and Simpson's Megaton Man decide they want to move to a more profitable comics universe. Perplexing the Hapless Normalman features appearances by Burden's Flaming Carrot, Mr. Spook of Marder's Bean World, and many, many other independent and mainstream comic characters. And there's just a ton of parodied characters done in this book. But yeah, our boys aren't wanted, and they team up with the Flaming Carrot character to jump through multiverses full of parodies, but they call it the Alternity. And there just so happens to be some fun characters that we might relate to. Like we have a Silver Gal that's in this book, and Anthony can appreciate this character. Madman makes an appearance in this book, right in the center here. And and you can see these little tubes full of characters, superhero characters in the background, and just by looking at their images, you can, when you look at them, when you're able to look at it by looking at the book, it's easier. You can tell who they're parodying off of. You got even a Mighty Mouse character, and there's just so many. I'm Gumby, damn it. So you got Gumby in there. It's just, they played off everything you could think of that we love. And this was just wonderful to go through this little parody. I just don't understand why it's called Normalman Megaton Man. I get that Normalman makes appearances throughout this book, But if you know anything about Normalman, I think why they did this, because of Captain Everything is the main character in here with Megaton Man, and Captain Everything comes from a planet full of soups, and on that planet there's one person that's normal, and that's Normalman. So him and Captain Everything are buddies, and that's how they kind of cross over. Here's the Normalman character right there. But yeah, this is a ton of fun just watching them try and get their little superhero show published, and trying to find a place where they could make money off it, and going through the different universes to get there. And it was fun. If you like the parody style comics, these are awesome ones to jump on. This is a nice little one shot. You don't have to be part of any of the other worlds to understand it, and it's just a lot of fun. So check that out by Image. Sorry about that. Image Comics.
I literally just added it to my shopping cart because of
I
that.
figured
Mad
when
moment, so.
you grab your phone.
Yep. So that is already in the next cart. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kind of go maybe like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away and catch up with our Jedi ambassador, Katie. What do we got here?
Hi, it's good to be back. We have another Star Wars epic collection. This is The Old Republic, Volume 5. This is wrapping up the Old Republic stories. It is written by John Jackson Miller, Wisconsin native, Darko McCann, and Paul Lee. Pencilers are Federico Dallocio, Ivan Rodriguez, Ivan Coelho, David Daza, Marco Castiello, Andrea Cella, Ramon F. Bach with Paul Lee, and Brian Horton. And a whole other team of creators, including many wonderful inkers, colorists, letters, editors, and cover artists. So this is covering the Knight Errant series, which was 3 miniseries featuring the Kara Holt character. She is a John Jackson Miller creation. There's also a novel about her, which I felt like I understood this story better having read the novel. I attempted to read this when I first got into comics because they just had some single issues at Crimson, and I didn't really get it. Here's Tara. The whole premise is, as the title says, she's a knight errant. She is out on planets in the Outer Rim that have basically fallen to the Sith, and she is fighting the good fight for truth and justice and to lift these people from Sith rule. One thing you need to know is that during this time there are like many Sith. The rule of two is not in play. In fact, there's a whole family of Sith that are like competing against each other, and whoever conquers the most planets gets grandma's inheritance. And like, it sounds really lame, but it actually works in the state of the comics. So our antagonists are Odian and Damon. They are 2 Sith brothers who are competing against each other for resources, and Kara is fighting against them, and who and how she teams up with them was pretty interesting. Eventually she makes it back to her home planet because she was forced to leave. She makes it back and kind of rediscovers what's been happening to the people there. And she also lost her parents at a young age when the Sith came and attacked. So one of the stories, she's working undercover for both Damon and Odian. She's a mole in each of their organizations to get more information about her parents and what happened to them. And of course, we have some good lightsaber fights and questions of good versus evil and like necessity and all that. Very fun that. And the second set of stories in here is Jedi versus Sith. And I think this is probably one of the hardest going Star Wars stories I've seen in a while. This is notable for collectors because it introduces the characters of Darth Bane and a little girl named Rain, who at the end we find out her name is Xana, and that is a very important character. Darth Bane basically reinstitutes the rule of 2 and solves all this nonsense of there being infinite numbers of like petty Sith warlords fighting against each other. The reason I say that this is a pretty deep and kind of challenging story is all our main characters are child soldiers. The Jedi are fighting this war against the Sith, and they are recruiting anyone they can get, whether they're force powered or not, and like force powered kids are just automatically gonna get, scooped up by the Jedi to go and fight this war. So that's how these kids get brought into it. They go by nicknames, Tomcat, Bug, and Rain. And Rain ends up getting separated from Tomcat and Bug. And then Tomcat and Bug are two boys, and they first they try to fight for the Jedi, but their images of like what a Jedi is changed from like what we heard in songs and stories to the actual reality of war and like why it's hard. And one of the boys ends up going over to the Sith, and the other one stays with the Jedi, and there's a whole lot of conflict about that. And Rain gets separated from them, and she's kind of with this group of aliens that are native to the planet of Rusan. And all this time, the aliens are sensing imminent danger, like they know something really bad is going to happen. And Rain, being a little kid, is like, oh no, I'll protect you, it's gonna be fine. And they're like, no, we sense a lot of darkness in you. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna be dark. And if you know about the character, she does end up getting dark. And then the war is kind of reaching like a turning point where one of the Sith decides that they're going to use a weapon called the thought bomb. And basically what that is it sucks the life force out of any force users in the area. So this is, a weapon of mass destruction. Like the Sith, by using this and drawing the Jedi to them, anyone caught in that radius is gone. One of the Sith thinks that they're so powerful they can cheat their way out of this thought bomb, and it doesn't really work. And then there's a pretty tragic showdown between the two boys, where one's working with the Jedi, one's with the Sith, and it seems like they're going to have to fight each other to the death. And then Rain gets to rejoin the group because she gets picked up by Darth Bane after doing some secret Jedi things that I won't spoil because they're pretty important to the story. Rain then comes and finds the boys in the wreckage of the area where the thought bomb went off, and the two boys are facing off. One of them dies, and then one of the other ones comes into contact with Darth Bane and Rain is really excited to see Tomcat, and you think it's going to end happy, and it does not. And Rain is involved in that quite heavily, and we find out her real name is Zena, and she's a pretty important character. And yeah, obviously it's a very deep story. We're dealing with child soldiers. Like there's not really a positive way to spin that, but I felt like they made it very, they didn't shy away that these kids have to grow up really fast. I will say there were a few points in the story where I'm like, dude, a 10-year-old doesn't talk like that, but we'll accept it for the purposes of the story. And the brutality of both the Jedi and the Sith, like there are moments in this where I'm like, the Sith are by far the more civilized option. And then you're like, oh, but no, they're not. Like, this is not like, it's war. It's very violent. Sacrifices are made and good people die. And I felt like that story really explored it really well. And what the horrors of violence and trauma at a young age can do. Like some people rise above that, others succumb to it, and others learn to like love it. So I thought that was a very interesting angle. If you're a collector, if you the single issues of this go on eBay, there's people selling them for all kinds of prices. There was a backup story from some Star Wars Visionaries content, but the two main stories were about Caraholt and then Jedi versus Sith, featuring Darth Bane and soon to be Darth Zana. I really enjoyed this. Let's see. So if you just picked up this volume, you might be able to follow it. The only thing I guess you would need to understand is that the rule of two doesn't apply, and there's a whole bunch of Sith and a whole bunch of Jedi running around. To me, it feels like earlier Old Republic stories were a lot more refined, and I mean more in like the style. And John Jackson Miller talks about that in here, where he's like, no, at that point, like they were living in a very like industrialized, progressive, modern, educated society that was thriving. And several thousand years later, by the time we get to issue 5, that's not the case. There's been centuries of on and off war and exploiting other planets and slave labor. And, you know, in the earlier Old Republic stories, they were basically around large cosmopolitan cities. And now we're dealing with stuff like on the frontier. So that's why there's that stylistic difference and things just seem more brutal. Also, there's a lot of, it seems to be for a while, the Star Wars fandom wanted to pin the High Republic against the Old Republic. And I feel like that's not really necessary. One, because of the timeline, the High Republic stuff is at most 350 years before the Phantom Menace, and Wave 1 was 150 years. This is thousands of years before. Like the Darth Bane stuff takes place like over 1,000 years before A New Hope. So the timeline, they can both still coexist. And I also think there's good things from both. It doesn't have to be one versus the other telling the story of the Old Republic. There's good things in both. But I enjoyed it. I had a pile of epic collections and I was like, we better start reading these before we buy some more. And I'm glad that I read this one. That's my review of Star Wars Epic Collections, The Old Republic, Volume 5. In stores now. Check it out.
Cool. That review was Wizard, Katie. All right. Let's jump over to Jim. What you got for us?
I have another book, another #1 from Image. This from their Shadowline imprint. This is The Last Barbarians from Brian Haberlin. He is writing and doing the art on this book. It looks like he has some assistance in the writing from Hannah Wall, and the colors are done by Gerard van Dyke. This is the setup for a D&D adventuring party. We look at the character of Sylve and her brother Shadow, who are people living in this medieval type town where their culture is around centered on guilds, and you can only belong to one guild. Once you join a guild, you are locked into that guild. You cannot change your career, you cannot change your anything. Anybody who joins or attempts to join more than one guild is considered a barbarian. You're cast out from their society. Sylve does not fit in. She has burned herself, burned her choices with more than one guild in town. Her friends are not able to help her anymore. She is really, really down on her luck. The one friend that she still has is a humanoid hedgehog who's called Hedgie. Who decides that he needs to leave and go back to his own people, and a barkeep who wants to look out for her, but Sylve is just too frustrated and lashes back and kind of almost burns that bridge as well, when at the last moment she is approached by a man who her barkeep friend warns her to stay away from. But with no other opportunities, she and Shadow go to join this man and take up the job offer he has, and find out that because they delayed in taking the opportunity, they are going to have to share one portion of the salary because he's already hired another fighter to join their group. So Sylve basically is filling the role of the classic thief in an adventuring party. The Falk who is recruiting them is this cleric or paladin type guy, even though he's been warned off. And then we have Miss Anka, who appears to be a fighter, perhaps a martial artist for the group. And that is where we end up the story, and they are leaving the town to seek adventure. There is just one thing that I had to highlight. As they are preparing to leave town, we see that there is a creature that I just love this thing. I want this thing to be existing in my games. It is this. Kind of looks terrifying.
Does it have a name?
Do not give a name of it, but
It looks like a giant-sized deer tick. It looks like a tick with a deer head.
it's kind of like a chipmunk with rabbit ears, antlers, and spider legs.
Adorable.
So it's like, but it's that small. It fits in her hand, you know. So yeah, these two creatures, these two ladies are spying on the group as they leave town. So that's the tension that's setting up for the next issue. So, but like, if you're into fantasy and adventure stories like that, this is a strong opening for this series. The background for your main character is pretty well set. There's still enough to find out about the other characters. And then where are they going? What are they doing? What are they going to find out? And who are these other two women that are following them?
All right. Okay, the next one I'm talking about here is a trade paperback, volume 1 of The Red Mother. After losing her eye and the man she loves in a brutal mugging, Daisy McDonough is left trying to put the pieces of her life back together. Just when she begins to think that she can heal, she starts to see strange things through the prosthetic eye, and the Red Mother sees her in return. This is a creeping horror story that examines the dangers that hide in plain sight and the consequences of digging beneath the surface to find the truth underneath. This series is done by Jeremy Hahn, Danny Luckert, Ed Dukeshire, and there we go. So this is something I picked up from Oh Yeah Comics in beautiful downtown Skokie, because Jeremy Hahn was hosted there last year for a signing for the new book that The Approach that I was also reading, and Joe, the manager over at Oh Yeah Skokie, who is celebrating a year of being the manager. So congratulations to Joe Crone. He set up a whole display of Jeremy Hahn's work, and one of those being The Red Mother. So I picked it up. It is a Boom series. It was in trade paperback. I know it's at volume 1 on here, but I wasn't sure if there was going to be more, if this is just anticipating more. And after reading this story, I realized, yes, there is one more volume at least to complete this story. So here's the review of volume 1, dealing with this character of Daisy and her, I don't know if we're talking about, I think a boyfriend. I'm trying to think if it was a husband, but her partner basically are out there on a walk, and something very horrific happens, as alluded to in the synopsis. Something that basically puts her in the hospital, and he is missing. So the series explores the investigation of what happened to her partner, and the consequences of what happened to her injury. We would later find out that she is somebody that is basically a very successful puzzle maker. It's something it's not really alluded to in the story too much, and it's just kind of sprinkled in, kind of almost randomly. But it becomes like a main focal point of the idea that Daisy is very successful, and she seems to kind of have sold her business and is just kind of enjoying life. She's got a friend that loves to travel, and they have this whole trip plan until this very tragic thing happens. And as she goes about and kind of gets some medical attention to this injury that she had with her eye, dealing with the prosthetic eye, the series starts to deal with differences of contrast of art, dealing with her just walking by normally, having these kind of migraine attacks, and then seeing these red visions. And we see that represented in the art there. And this happens throughout the book, and it's dealing with her at her therapist, talking about these visions that she's been having, going back to the doctor, talking about her partner who is still have gone missing, and it got to the point where there's not much the police can do, and she still obviously is trying to figure this out. And the last thing I'll kind of do to set up this volume is saying that while she's dealing with kind of having all this tragedy very quick after that initial opening of the mugging scene, and kind of having problems not wanting to go out and kind of staying inside, and feeling almost betrayed to the point where it seems like the detectives have kind of given up on trying to find the partner, and the moving on, all the stuff that's happening when there really isn't any answer to what happened. And then she's dealing with all these red visions. But there is the last little teasing of this story is that a mysterious package shows up on her doorstep with her name, and it's essentially a kind of a little puzzle contraption in the shape of a heart. And there's somebody that is kind of seeking her out, knowing that she has this gift of these puzzle making and puzzle solvings and things like this, and has created a whole business out of it, and has dreams of creating an app and all of this stuff. And now there's somebody who just kind of randomly put something on her doorstep to kind of for her to figure out. So the story has a couple of interesting layers in there, and the overall horror threat of this thing that only her that she has been seeing with this red mother, as we see on the cover art there. Yeah, this is definitely very creepy, very entertaining, very invested into the character stories. You got the mystery of the missing partner. Yeah, there's a lot to be told here, and this is 4 issues in this first collection. It has a nice quote from James Tynion IV, who we know from being a great writer on Batman, as well as Something is Killing the Children. And yep, I knew Jim's head would pop up there when I mentioned that. James Tynion said, "It's brutal, human-driven horror at its finest." So that's some high praise over there. But yeah, once again, I just checked this out because I was just ended up going to meet Jeremy Hahn and check out his other work, and this thing Boom Studios looked awesome, and now I'm definitely gonna have to pick up volume 2 to see the rest of the story. So yeah, this is definitely very awesome, very creepy. There's a couple things I'm leaving out just imagery wise, because it's a pretty cool reveal on some of our threats in this book, so I'll leave that aside. And yeah, I think that's all I can say about that. That is The Red Mother, Volume 1 over at Boom Studios. And this is from 2020. Yeah, 2020. So, yeah, this has been out there in the stands for a while. So, it's never too late to check out some books. Of course, mine's only, 2 to 3 years old. And, Kirby talked about a little older one. So, that's a great example that, it's even an old comic can be a new comic to you. The Red Mother, Volume 1. All right.
Yeah. They're behind on getting me some new comics, so yeah, that's why I've been vegging on the old ones. Since you got to order that, and you might as well pre-order this, because buy 3 get 1 free, or whatever, depending on who you're ordering from there. But we got Savage Dragon, Destroyer Duck from 1996, 3 crazed creators, 2 classic characters together in one mind-blowing team up the comic book world won't soon forget. Eric Larson's Fighting Finhead teams up with Steve Gerber's Marauding Mallard to quell a postmodern mob war in the streets of Chicago. Plus, the return of Gregory Brainerd and the Industrial Accidents, Super Freak, Self-Esteem Training, plus a surprise cameo by a world-famous webhead and Cleveland's favorite foul. Written by Steve Gerber, art and cover by Chris Marinan and Eric Larson. This is a blast because I love the Destroyer Duck character because of his history, basically becoming the replacement for Howard the Duck and stuff. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to read through. Yeah, Needle Nose in here is the bad guy. Needle Nose is a character. His only ability is that he's got a nose that can extend out into a long needle, and he likes to stab people with it. including popping a giant brain in this episode. But he causes a bunch of problems with his nose, with Soups and the regulars. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles make an appearance in here while they're fighting a character that's in a metal suit that's kind of invincible, and he's like, you're not going to be able to damage me. He's been trapped in this suit for years. He's been trying to get out of the suit. He even takes this giant jackhammer and puts it against his chest and lights it up and shows them that his armor is so strong that it breaks the jackhammer. A bunch of things happen with a lot of different characters throughout here, and eventually the Savage Dragon chases down our character that's stuck in the suit of armor, and they do get in a scuffle bad enough that he does break the Savage Dragon's able to break the armor, and it's basically there's a collision with the spaceship and a train and Savage Dragon and everything, and the ground and everything, and eventually the armor does kind of shatter, and we find out that underneath it's the Destroyer Duck character, and he was stuck in the suit of armor by the Brainerd character. That's basically a guy with a glass dome with a brain in it. Over the years, his brain has grown and evolved, expanded to the point of being a huge ball of brain. He's doing an interview here, and that is his brain that's expanded above and beyond his body. And he has this ability to take these little key type things that he puts in devices that he puts on characters, and it kind of calms them, and they don't realize that their bodies have been taken over, and he uses them to do things for them, but he just leaves them trapped in these devices for years on end, and I don't know how they go to the bathroom or anything because the poor Destroyer Duck character had no way to get out of his outfit until the Savage Dragon helped him. But yeah, again, lots of parodies, lots of different characters. And we got bird ladies, we got horsemen, we got all kinds of fun characters in here. And like they said, we happen to have a crossover with a certain webhead character. We get Spidey in here. We get a Medusa style character, a lady with a big head of red hair that she can control and manipulate and do things with. I can't find a good picture of her at the moment, but there's kind of, you might know her, kind of like a parody of a certain I got Immortal stuck in my head, but it's not Immortal. We also get even a parody off a King Shark character. There's just so many fun parodies in this one again. And if you know anything about the people that are involved in this comic book, they are the originators of Howard the Duck. We happen to have a Leonard the Duck centerfold in here. And the greatest part about this book is in the back, and I've talked about it in the past when I've read some of Eric's stuff, and it gives you the history of how Marvel Comics kind of took over characters like Silver Surfer and Howard the Duck, Elektra, all that. It's like the main creators started them, then Marvel's like, okay, we're taking over licensing, we're going to give it to whoever we want to play on the storyline. And it's like a lot of creators got ticked off about that over the years, and it came to the point where they ended up doing certain benefits, which I talked about in one of the last books of his that I reviewed, but I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, you get a nice history in this back part that just tells you all about that, how so many characters, Miller, Stanley, and all of them, they put their heart and soul into things, and then creative licenses just disappear, and how they went to Image, because Image just lets you bring your thing out. And if you go off, make movies and all that stuff, they're not going to come after you for money on it and stuff. They just worry about the issues that you produce through their company. And it just gives the creators more licensing and stuff like that, which is nice. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Another great parody book, another great Savage Dragon book. Who knows, maybe I'll have more in the near future, but for now, those are the ones that I've checked out. We'll see what happens.
Excellent. All right. I am very excited to throw over the next pick to Katie, because it is something that has been discussed on this podcast many a times throughout the years of different iterations. And I am so excited to hear her thoughts on this next title. What do you got?
Okay, I have Sheets by Brenna Thumler, written and drawn. Wow, what a book. I read this all in one sitting. It was absolutely not what I expected. I thought I'm getting a fun, bright, happy cartoon about adventures at the laundromat. No, this is a book about loss and grief and death and dying from the side of the living and of the dead, the ghost world. It takes place kind of in two locations. One is in a small town where our main character, Marjorie, is running the day-to-day of her family's laundromat. And then the other location is in the ghost world with our main character, Wendell, who is the ghost of a little boy who we'll find out later died in a tragic accident and is not fitting in very well at all in the ghost world. He's just having a hard time. Let's see. So that's the setup. Everyone's mean to Marjorie. I got really frustrated with the adults in this because we find out Marjorie's like 14 or 15. She's in high school. Like, she doesn't even drive. And all these adults are being awful to her. And we find out that Marjorie's mom died last summer, and it might not have been a natural death. They don't outright say it, but we know she died suddenly and tragically, and her family is left reeling from this loss. It's Halloween time, so there's pictures of ghosts hung up everywhere, and Marjorie is like, I don't want to deal with ghosts. Like, ghosts aren't real. Like, why are we talking about all of this? And she's just having a hard time at school, which, yeah, you would be. The employees / customers at the laundromat are just like nasty people. Like, there's this one mom who like insults this poor child, and there's this predatory land developer, and he's the main villain of the story, who keeps basically trying to talk Marjorie into selling him the laundromat because he's going to open up a 5-star spa and resort. Marjorie also is taking care of her little brother and her father, and things are just really rough. And then we go into the ghost town, and Wendell is going to the support group called DYE, so die, but what does it stand for? Dead Youth Empathetic. So they're going around like talking about, oh, how I died, and Wendell is telling these obviously fantastical stories that he has made up, and the other ghost kids don't really like it, and they kind of pick on him. And then even when Wendell does get invited to go and do something, he prefers to stay home because he just doesn't feel right about this. And I thought it was just a random detail, but it ended up being really central to the story. So every ghost gets a sheet, and in the ghost world, there is a bathhouse where they go and have special ghost sheet cleaner. And at first I thought that was just a cute detail. It actually ends up being very important to the rest of the story. And then Wendell decides he doesn't like being in the ghost town. He wants to go over to the human world. So he does. And he finds himself at Marjorie's laundromat along with all the other ghosts, or sheets, as Wendell thinks they're ghosts. Marjorie thinks they're sheets. It's pretty funny, actually. And he gets involved in some hijinks like, you know, flooding the laundromat floor. We see him giving himself a back massage with the iron. He goes for a spin in the washer and dryer because that's like a ghost theme park ride. And he builds a blanket fort out of all the sheets. And this poor little kid is just having fun and messes everything up for Marjorie because now the place is flooded. It's a mess. Her customers are mad at her. And the The bad guy in the story is once again pressing on her to sell this to him. Yeah, so many very powerful moments in here. I don't want to give all of them away. And the bad guy decides he's going to sabotage the laundromat by putting red dye in all of the laundry detergent so that people's wash will get ruined, and then the store will have to go out of business. And his plan actually gets foiled by Wendell, because Wendell accidentally spills some of the laundry detergent and forces Marjorie to have to go and get, regular non-tampered with detergent. So in a way, he messes things up, but he also ends up saving them in the end. The bad guy, keeps being on their case, and Marjorie's father, who I'll talk about in a second, because I did have some questions about him. Marjorie's father's like, you know what, whatever, sell it. He can have it. I don't care anymore. And she says, I'll go ahead and make you a deal. And she's all upset and crying and miserable because they're going to lose their house. They're going to lose their jobs. And yeah, it was kind of a crappy house, and she didn't like running the laundromat anyway, but damn it, it was home. This was her mother's house. She bought it. Wendell ends up going back to Ghost Town, and he gets in big trouble for breaking a lot of the ghost rules. And he tells all his little friends, okay, before you punish me, my friend is there and she really needs some help. I think we should go and help her out, because the ghosts are like, well, the humans don't care about us. The living people have forgotten about all of us. And Wendell's like, no, they haven't. It's a year, and she thinks about her mom's death every single day, So they go over, the ghosts help her out, chase out the bad guy, and give new life to the laundromat, because it turns out ghost detergent is very powerful. It can get out any stain whatsoever. And then that makes them the best laundromat in the whole state. And business is back to booming again. Let's see. Very cute story. This reminds me a little bit of a book I read last year called Fun Home, where these were both very literary comic books that are dealing with real life issues and problems, and the fact that life is messy and extremely inconvenient, and that death often leaves us with a lot of questions. It leaves us, feeling a lot of pain and maybe even some anger or frustration or denial. And I thought this book explored that very, very well, and was still sensitive to the fact that, this is really hard. And they explored the different ways that people go through their grief. So Wendell's in a lot of denial. We find out that Wendell died in an accidental drowning. And he doesn't want to think about it. So he's telling all these stories of, I was abducted by aliens, and then the cowboys came and rescued me, but the banditos caught me and I was tied up on the train tracks, and all kinds of wacky things. There was a pirate ship in my backyard because the river flooded. Very much like a little kid would do to understand death and dying. And then with Marjorie, she powers through because she has no other option. If she succumbs to the very heavy grief that she's feeling, her family loses everything, even more than they've had. Her little brother is, in a way, a good foil to Wendell, because her little brother's in kindergarten, and he doesn't seem to quite understand it, because he's just, doing kindergarten things, and he's in a pretty good mood throughout most of the story, as we see that Marjorie is sheltering him from the bad things that are going on. And then Marjorie's father became severely depressed due to the loss of his wife and his children's mother and his business failing, and what are they going to do about all of that? I got a little mad at him, and this is not a critique on a technical level. I think this is actually something that really would happen. I got mad at him because I feel like he needs to be the one showing up for his family. His children are still alive, right? His wife is a part of his children, and these little babies need him. Your 6-year-old needs their father if their mother's passed away. They need their parents anyway, but especially in a situation like this. Marjorie is still a child herself. She's going to high school throughout this, going through all the crap you do as a high school girl, like the other girls are mean to you, and you know, does this boy like me? I don't want to go to gym class because I don't want to do swimming lessons. And she's trying to run a business and keep her family together. I felt like the dad needed to show up more than he did. Now, it's very real life that sometimes when a tragedy happens, like people are not able to deal with it. So I thought that was very true to form, but I was mad at him. Even at the end, he's like, he's not even fighting like for his house. And I'm like, really? So I got kind of frustrated. Like, I do have problems with depression. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And it's actually one of the reasons I might not have biological children is because like I want to be there for them. And I know that illness, when it gets extreme out of control, like some people are just unable to parent. And I understand the father had children before, you know, he fell into this depression, but I still feel like if I were him, I would do anything to push through so that my babies knew that even though that their mom is gone, like their dad is still here and he still loves them and is protecting them. And we're all in this together. I don't think I could live with myself if I was forcing my 15-year-old to do all of this stuff. But I think that's a very true reflection of life because it's not easy. It's easy from the outside to say, oh, just, you know, work harder, you know, just power through it. But sometimes you can't freaking get out of bed. Like, so that was interesting. And at the end, he does end up getting, you know, his spirit back. He feels better and things are going well. I thought that was a good family dynamic. That reminded me also of Fun Home because in Fun Home, the parents' actions do reflect upon the children and the different problems that causes. And we have adolescent daughters in varying ways responding to their father's problems, their choices, and just the general, you know, chaos of life in your late teens, your early 20s. So that reminded me of that as well. Wendell's innocence, I think, brings a ton of charm to what would otherwise be a really, really sad book. So here at the end, I do want to point out, you know, the father's better. He's dressed, he's working the business, he's, you know, making sure the kids are getting fed, that Marjorie has a chance to go to her piano lessons. And things are better at school for Marjorie. And now she's good buddies with Wendell and she feels better about swimming again. What else about this book? So the main bad guy is like, I might be reading too much into this, but I'm like, are they, I don't like this word in reference to people, but in literary theory, it's called queer coding. I don't usually like that to describe people because it has a history of being a slur, but I'm like, am I reading too much into this? Like he's this very fashionable, personable, charming guy who likes yoga, but also doesn't have a job. And I'm like, is this, are they trying to say that he's gay and that being gay is why he's doing this? I think I'm just reading too much into it. He is kind of a creep, like, you know, coming to this shop every single day and like being like, hey, you know, teenage girl, and calling her like sweetie and muffin and blueberry pie. So he's trying. It was very weird. The villain in the story gave me the ick because I don't think he's a bad guy, but he's definitely written to be like really slimy. And you know, like some of the stylistic choices they did, I'm like, are they trying to say that like being gay automatically means you're a predator? Which is not true. And you know, I do not agree with that. And I don't even think the author's trying to say that. This villain just gave me the ick, and it reminded me of things that I know about analyzing literature in relation to LGBTQ theory. Anyway, I flipping love this book. The ending was so satisfying. It felt really good. It felt like all of the pain they went through was worth it, and they grew through it and became better people. Oh, by the way, there's a really cute ghost lady who's like kind of a hippie that like gives everyone their sheets, and she's super cute. And she helps bring some peace to Marjorie regarding her mom's death. Really like this book. I would definitely read some more. I know there's been a few standalone one-shots and then an additional graphic novel. The color choice of using a lot of bright colors was also really good because otherwise this would just be like a super depressing book. But I loved this. I got so much out of this. So many questions, a lot of good ideas, a very unique story. This is an incredible and unique way to look at death and dying and the impact it leaves on us. Well done. Brenna Thumler, 10 out of 10 for Sheets, the graphic novel featuring Wendell and Marjorie. Check it out.
And to give extra plugs for Brenna, so available in trade paperback. They came out with the hardcover edition, which does include the free comic book day one-shot special. So that's an exclusive to the hardcover. There is the sequel called Delicates, bringing in the new character of Eliza. And coming out later this year is the third and final volume of the Sheets trilogy, being Lights, which we'll discuss once it's in the pre-order catalog. But I think there are some outlets you can pre-order now. Check out BrennaThumler.com. You can find her portfolio, a shop, information about these books and other contacts. Through her online shops, I had scored some little handmade ghost charms. Yeah, and then also some technical original art from Brenna Thumler, because there was a little ghost saying thank you on the package, so I had to save that. So this is original art right here. This is one of my most treasured pieces. But yes, Brenna Thumler is amazing. We'll be talking about her more as the third and final volume of this trilogy is available for pre-order within the catalog. So excellent.
Cool.
All right. So let's jump over. I think we have one more review left. Jim, what you got?
I have another number one, this time from Boom Studios. This one is written by Justin Jordan with art by Bram Revel. This is Harrower. We have in this book the first 15 or 20 minutes of your classic teen horror story. Horror movie. We set up in a town in upstate New York where at one point there was one point generations ago, like from the founding of the town, there is the legend of the Harrower who does bad things to people in town. Don't know why, don't know what causes it, but whatever. And then we see a scene with the sheriff going into an abandoned house, and then faced with this hooded character who has some kind of blade on a chain that he spins around, and then the sheriff is no more. From there, it goes to a scene in the local high school where the history teacher is teaching the kids about the legend of the Harrower and something called the Sinner's Mark, which appears whenever the Harrower comes around. And the kids are joking about all this legend and everything. It's like, when you see their hijinks in the hallway and their plans for the night, because they get to go out unsupervised and party because all the adults in town are going to a big event that they all are expected to go to because it is tradition and nobody is going to not go. So the kids all have their freedom for the night. Skip ahead a little bit to the one family where the parents are getting ready for the gala, and the daughter walks in, and we find out that a younger brother had been killed on this date in previous years. We don't know exactly how many, but maybe it's one, maybe it's a little bit more. And the mother is still dealing with the grief and is pretty distraught at the moment. And the father is obsessed with tying his bow tie so he can go to the party. Skip ahead a little bit more. The teens are in a car driving to their party when they get a flat tire in a country road and they have no cell service. And of course, some of them are going to walk to the party and try to get help. Some of them are going to try to walk back and get help and see if they can get the tire fixed. And as also in there, we also see another young man who is the son of the sheriff who was killed, who is a loner type, who has access to lots of guns. And it's very ominous to see what he does. We see the teens as they walk their different ways. One couple is going they're going to get the tire fixed, and they hear a strange noise, and the young man, they try to run away, they fall. The young man actually holds back the young lady while this hooded figure with the spinning chain and blade comes closer, and as she is struck down by this Harrower figure, the young man basically kneels at his feet and worships. I want to be your follower. I want to be, you're my master. And it's like, so basically that is the first chapter of this book. This is, like I said, it's basically the classic teen horror movie, the very first act of the movie. So we set up the premise of what's going to be happening in this town. A very nice depiction of this figure on the cover. There we go. Another one on the back. Yeah, that's another, like I said, a classic horror movie.
Cool. All right. Well, that is going to do it for the show. We're going to jump into the plugs, which I now have listed in a scrolling format in the YouTube video version. So check that out. So I'll kind of breeze through this, but there are a couple things I do want to call out. We have crimsoncowl.com. We have original webcomics being done there, which are based off of the creators' RPG campaigns. And there's now chapters 1, 2, and 3 available now, plus the holiday special, crimsoncowl.com. Email us, crimsoncowlcomicclub@yahoo.com. Subscribe to this on YouTube. You're watching this on YouTube, so hit subscribe and like and all of that fun stuff. And then we have an upcoming Hellboy book club series, which 2 episodes are in the can, just waiting to get a little head start, and we're almost ready to start dropping those. So those are exclusive to the YouTube channel. The Crimson Cowl on Instagram. Subscribe, rate, and review Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. Kirby has a spin-off podcast called Under the Cowl of MS. Anything you'd like to promote and advertise for what came out or what's to come from Under the Cowl of MS?
Currently, we're on spring break and doing some spring cleaning for a couple of weeks, but we will try and get a few videos out at least. So keep an eye on our YouTube channel. But other than that, it's comics, MS, health, and all kinds of other things. Whatever I feel like talking about that day.
Excellent. Under the Cowl of MS. I have some hobby accounts over at Facebook and Instagram with my name, Anthony Latch. And then I am very close to announcing a new YouTube project that I've been working with some past guests of this very comic club. So that is going to do it. Check the scrolling links for all the details of everything we just said and the way you can follow us, rate and review and share and like and subscribe and everything that you do to help this podcast grow. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. This whole time, the great evil once shared his ice cream cone with me.
I've been normal, man.
I'm going on an adventure.
The Harrower will keep Barlow pure.
To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.